Welcome to the EOS Process audio series. In a few minutes, you'll hear from Gino Wickman, the founder of Virtual CEO Incorporated and creator of the EOS Process. The EOS Process was created to help organizations clarify, simplify, and achieve their vision. Clients of the process follow a very specific meeting pulse and learn a series of practical tools that are implemented in the organization. The result is increased traction toward the organization's vision. Gino Wickman has been an entrepreneur since the age of 21. Having run, turned around, and successfully sold the family business, he was also one of the original 10 members and a past board member of the Detroit chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. After the sale of the family business and transitioning in of the new leadership team, he set out to pursue his passion and purpose of helping entrepreneurial organizations grow. After delivering over 300 full-day sessions with leadership teams and having worked with hundreds of leaders in many industries, he created the EOS Process. Now, clients that go through the EOS Process have grown 18% annually on average. The process works directly with leadership teams, helping them get on the same page with the vision for the organization, execute better, and create traction toward that vision while becoming more healthy and cohesive as a team. From there, as goes the leadership team, so goes the company. Now, before we begin, may I communicate two very important points. First, the tools you are about to learn are discoveries. There's no theory here, no magic pills or silver bullets, and we don't do flavor of the month. These tools have been around for hundreds of years and will be around for thousands more. What you will find here are timeless principles that make organizations great. And second, the approach of the implementers of the EOS process are entrepreneurial, real-world, common sense, simple, and practical. We teach the pure basics. So let's join Gino now in learning what is helping so many organizations succeed as they gain traction toward becoming great. Track 2. Setting the Stage.
I'd like to start by setting the stage, some ground rules, if you will. The first thing is, what you're about to hear are discoveries. These tools were discovered over a 15-year journey of being curious about what makes organizations work, what makes great organizations great. What I'm about to share with you are not suggestions. This is not a seminar. I promise you, if you implement them in your organization, you will truly become great. Our clients at the end of the journey say, these tools are simple, and quite frankly, they are. However, I don't want you to be fooled. The journey is tough. These tools are, yes, simple, but not easy. However, you'll find that the journey is worth it. When I talk about our clients, our typical client is an organization that does somewhere between 2 and 50 million in revenue, has 10 to 250 employees. However, we do have some clients that have 600 to 1,000 employees, some clients that do over 100 million in revenue. Frankly, this process works with any organization, be it a sole proprietor or a billion-dollar organization. We just find that our kind of sweet spot, for lack of a better term, are these small to mid-size organizations. As for who this will work for, what organizations this will work for, a lot of times when we meet with an organization for the first time, the first thing they say is, our organization's different. That won't work here. And so what I always respond with is I say, do you have people in your organization? Jokingly. Because bottom line, if you have people in your organization, this process will work. The industry you're in, the business that you're in, quite frankly, is irrelevant. However, where there's bureaucracy, where there are dictatorships, where there is a lack of caring about people, I caution you, this will not work. The next thing I ask is that you listen to this CD 3 times so that it really sinks in. My goal for you is that you literally embed these tools into the organization, and we can't do that until we embed them in your brain. The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is to literally step outside of your business as we go on this journey. Take yourself out of the craziness of the business. Because if your business is normal, it's crazy. And if you try and listen to these CDs, as well as think about the craziness of the business, it just doesn't work. So I'm going to ask you to give yourself permission to take yourself outside of the business, close your eyes if you have to, push everything aside, float up above the business, looking down on the business, and let's go to work on your business. My goal for you is by the end of this journey, you're in more control of your business, so it's not controlling you, and that we increase the value of your organization. If we aren't doing those two things for you, we're stealing your money. The next thing I'll share with you is be careful what you wish for, because with this process, you'll get it. We are typically standing in front of 3 to 8 people on a leadership team during this process. And so with saying that, I want you to literally imagine yourself with your leadership team, looking at your leadership team as you listen to these CDs. And that's the way I'll be communicating to you, to both you and your leadership team. And now when I say leadership team, what I'm referring to is they're called executive teams, they're called management teams, you might call yours the executive committee, whatever term you use to describe that team of people that is leading and managing the organization, I'm going to call that, for the sake of this CD series, the leadership team. Now that the stage is set, and with those thoughts in mind, let's get to work.
Track 3. Introduction to the Vision CD.
Welcome to the Vision session. This is where we build your organization's vision. Now, this is typically a 2-day process that we go through with leadership teams, and at the end of the process, you have a laser-clear vision for the organization. On this CD, by the end of the process, we will clarify, simplify, and get the entire leadership team on the same page with the organization's vision. Now, this comes from a couple discoveries. The first discovery is that every organization has a vision. Unfortunately, everyone in the organization doesn't have the same vision. If I took your leadership team, and let's pretend there are 6 of you, and I met with each one of you in a separate room, and I asked you, what is the vision? I would literally, again, if you're normal, get 6 different versions of what the vision is for the organization. The beauty of it, however, is in there is a vision. So that's the first discovery. The next discovery is that by getting everyone on the leadership team 100% on the same page with what the vision is for the organization, you will find that most issues go away, or at least are solved quicker. And so with that alone, it's worth taking this journey. There's a quote I like to share in one of Pat Lencioni's books, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And he quotes a friend of his that built an organization from the ground up all the way to $1 billion in revenue. And the quote is, if you could get all of the people in an organization rowing in the same direction, you could dominate any industry, in any market, against any competition, at any time. That's so powerful. That's so true. And so bottom line, we've got to get everybody rowing in the same direction. We've got to get your leadership team 100% on the same page. Now, why vision second? Because in the prior CD, we covered the focus and the traction side of things. And there's a method to the madness. We purposely do traction first because, frankly, the vision stuff is kind of the fun stuff. And we could fly all over the country doing 2-day vision sessions for people, creating great visions. However, the discovery is that if there is not a strong foundation of traction and accountability and focus in the organization to build that vision upon, then I believe that we are doing a disservice. And so when we say vision, what do we mean? First of all, as you've heard many, many times now, simplicity is the key. And so we are not big believers in the wonderful world of 100-page strategic plans, hours and hours of research, and thousands of consulting dollars being spent. what we believe is a very simplistic approach. And in that 100-page strategic plan are simply 8 questions that need to be answered, that all organizations need to answer. And to the degree they can answer these 8 questions, and once again, all be on the same page, we then have a clear vision. Now remember, simple is the key here. So when I talk about the 8 questions, we've created a tool called the Vision Traction Organizer, or for short, the VTO. This is the tool that contains the 8 questions. If you don't have a version of the VTO, please feel free to contact us and we'd be happy to send you one. So what are the 8 questions? The 8 questions are contained within the VTO. The VTO is basically broken into 8 sections. The first is, what are your core values as an organization? Part 2 and the next question is, what is your core focus? And I'll explain that in better detail in just a bit. The third section and the third question is, what is your 10-year target? The fourth section is, what is your marketing strategy? The fifth section and fifth question is, what is your 3-year picture? The sixth session is, what is your 1-year plan? And as you can see, we're starting to take it down to the ground. Number 7 is, what are your quarterly rocks as an organization? And then finally, section number 8, what are your issues? What is that issues list? What are the issues preventing us from getting to where we want to go? Now let's take them one at a time.
Track 4, Core Values.
The first section of the VTO is, what are your core values? So what the heck is a core value? First of all, core values are a small set of essential and timeless guiding principles. The rule of thumb is 3 to 7. Again, always less is more. They are what define your culture, define who you truly are as an organization. You'll find when they're clear, they attract people to your organization. You will also find that they expunge people from your organization. Again, ones that just don't fit. When they're clear, you hire, fire, review, reward, and recognize around these core values. Because unfortunately, when we have people that don't have our core values, they're not the right people for the organization. Just like the analogy as the flower grows, when the flower has a branch that's dying, it tends to hinder the flower's growth. And by simply pruning that dying branch, the flower will grow rapidly. And the same thing applies to your organization. Unfortunately, there are people in the organization that just aren't the right people for the organization, and they're holding us back. And just like with the flower analogy, when we do a little pruning, we tend to grow a lot faster. The next point with core values is that core values are discovered. In other words, they already exist in the organization. It's just a matter of discovering what they truly are. And whatever they are, those are the rules you play by. Pat Lencioni talks about a program called Parent Effectiveness Training. And in that program, in a nutshell, it teaches parents how to do 3 things to be great parents. Number 1 is have a handful of rules. Number 2 is repeat yourself often. And number 3 is be consistent. Walk the talk. As go you, so go they. Very powerful stuff. Now, obviously, this isn't a parenting CD, but the same rules apply. You, as the leaders of your organization, you are the parents of the organization. And to that degree, you need to be great parents. And great parenting, again, is have a handful of rules, those core values. Repeat yourself often. The rule of thumb is that people need to hear something 7 times to hear it for the first time. That's a fact. With that knowledge, when you're frustrated after the 3rd or 4th time you've told somebody something, as opposed to getting frustrated, your new outlook needs to be only 3 or 4 more to go. So repeat yourself often, and then finally be consistent. Whatever those core values are, you must walk that talk. You must lead by example. Because as goes your leadership team, so goes the organization. Now, let's pretend they're discovered. The next step in the process is then to communicate these core values to the organization. I like to call it the speech. So there's going to come a time soon, once you've really discovered what the core values are, you're going to simply write the speech. And the speech goes like this. Each stated core value, which is typically 3 to 5 words, will then be backed up with stories, analogies, examples of anti-values, and different ways of really driving home what that core value means. Because people don't always understand what you mean just as you state the core value. So you're going to write that speech for each of the core values and then communicate that to the organization. And then from there, it becomes a living tool, which that speech is then incorporated into your hiring process. So when you hire someone on board, they need to hear the speech. They need to know who you are. You will find that your hiring success ratios will increase, and I want to say that they'll literally double as a result of hiring on core values before you even look to skill. Many, many successful organizations follow the exact same process. There's always a story I like to share about Southwest Airlines, who their core values are so very clear, so very important to them. And so one of their core values is customer service / fun. In other words, they're a very fun organization. If you've ever flown them, you've seen it. They have a real good time. They wear shorts, and it's incredible customer service. And so the story is, there was an elderly woman on the flight, and she was upset by the fact that these flight attendants were having fun. They'll literally throw the peanuts to you. It's really a great time. And she was insulted by the fact that they're taking flying, which is such serious business, and making such light of it. And so she sent Herb Kelleher a letter, and it said this: I will no longer fly your airline if you're going to continue with this. And basically explained her frustration and that flying is serious business and you shouldn't do those types of things. And so what Herb did is he sent her a letter back, and it simply said this: we will miss you. In other words, if that makes sense, your core values, if they're truly who you are, you should never apologize for them. One more story I'd like to share is the story of my first organization. We were the #1 real estate sales training organization in North America. And we had a competitor, and we would jockey for kind of #1 and #2 position. They were amazingly successful, and we were a pretty darn successful organization ourselves. However, the cultures could not have been more different. In other words, the point here is it doesn't matter what the core values are, it's just that you have them. And so with that being said, if one of our people ever left and went to that organization, they just would never quite feel at home and would not thrive because it's not the culture for them. And vice versa. If one of their people came to work in our organization, they'd never really quite fit in because they're completely different cultures and a completely different set of core values. So let's begin the journey, discovering your core values. Here's how the exercise works. With your leadership team, what you're going to do, step 1, is you're going to list 3 people. Come up with 3 names, preferably inside the organization. If not, you're going to have to look outside of the organization. But list 3 people that if you had 100 of those, you'd literally take over the world, or at least whatever world it is that you want to take over. So step 1, list the names. Step 2, looking at those list of names, looking at those people, list the characteristics that make up those people. Why them? What is it about them? What is it that they exemplify? What is it that they do that help them make the list for you? So in step 2, you're going to come up with all of these wonderful characteristics, and then you're going to list them on the board. Step 3, you're going to take a first cut at that list, because in that list, typically, after doing this many times, your core values are in there. They're in that list. And so we take a first cut and we say, okay, which ones are truly core and which ones aren't? And so you're going to narrow that list down to kind of a handful, 5 to 10 maybe. And again, remember the rule of thumb is 3 to 7. And then in step 4, you're going to take another cut at that list. And here's where you're going to make some tough decisions. You're going to discuss and debate. And out of all that wonderful work, your core values will be discovered. So when we say core values, What are we talking about? What does a core value look like? So I want to give you a couple examples. The first set of core values I want to give you are Walt Disney's core values. There are 5. Core value number 1 is no cynicism. Core value number 2 is the nurturing and promulgation of wholesome American values. Core value number 3 is creativity, dreams, and imagination. Core value number 4 is fanatical attention to consistency and detail. And core value number 5 is preservation and control of the Disney magic. If those core values aren't your core values, you'll never quite fit into Walt Disney. I'd like to give you one more example. Nordstrom, they have 4 core values. Their first core value is service to the customer above all else. Their second core value is hard work and individual productivity. Their third core value is never being satisfied. And their fourth core value is excellence and reputation, being a part of something special. So hopefully that starts to give you a sense of what a core value is. Other examples are words like fun, initiative, integrity, fairness, teamwork, trust. Many, many different words and terms and characteristics. Bottom line, all of those things are relevant. It's just a matter of you coming up with what are those characteristics, what are those core values for your organization. Now, assuming you've discovered your core values, you know what they are, you've written the speech, the next big step is to use a tool called the People Analyzer. The People Analyzer is a tool that helps you understand if a person has your core values or doesn't have your core values. I highly recommend you use this tool first with your leadership team and then determine how you're going to bring it to the organization. The way it works, as a leadership team, it's a spreadsheet. At the top, you list your core values as an organization. Down the left-hand side, you list each person on the leadership team. Then what you each do is you take a quiet 5 minutes and you go ahead and you rate everyone on the leadership team. In the rating, you're only allowed one of 3 ratings. So you're going to look at the person on the list, look at the core value, and you're going to rate them either a plus minus, or a minus. One of 3 ratings. And you're going to go right down the list with each core value and each person. You're giving honest and constructive feedback to your leadership team because remember what we talked about. As goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. And so you all need to be walking that talk. And so there's going to be some brutal facts of reality here. One last point on the People Analyzer. What I would suggest is if you do the People Analyzer and you find that one core value, the entire leadership team is all plus minuses or less, I would then strongly suggest that it's probably not a core value. From there, I suggest you take it to the organization and incorporate that tool into your reviewing process. So now that your core values are clear and the wonderful work's been done, go ahead and plug in your core values right into the VTO, and we've now answered question number 1, section number 1, what are your core values?
Track 5. Core focus.
The second section and the second question is, what is your core focus? There is an epidemic in business, and that epidemic is that companies get off track. It doesn't take much for an organization to get off track in the hustle and bustle of the business world. Businesses can easily become distracted by opportunities that are wolves in sheep's clothing. Others falsely assume that since they are succeeding in one business, they can succeed in any, while others simply get bored. Your job as a leadership team is to establish your organization's core focus and not let anything distract you. Many things have the potential to distract us from our core focus. Steve, a member of one of my clients' leadership teams, calls it shiny stuff. A competitor, a new idea, a new product, and poor advice that looks like good advice at the time are just a few examples. The central concept of a core focus has been given many different names over time, including mission statement, vision statement, core business, sweet spot, the zone, and the ball, as in keep your eye on. In his book, The Eighth Habit, Stephen Covey calls it voice. Dan Sullivan calls it unique ability, and in Good to Great, Jim Collins calls it the hedgehog concept. I call it core focus because it should come from the company's core, and you must stay laser focused on it. Russell H. Conwell's story, Acres of Diamonds, illustrates the power of knowing your core focus. To paraphrase the story, there was once a man named Ali who owned a large farm with many orchards. Ali was perfectly content with his life until one day when a local priest told him how the Almighty had created diamonds and how one stone the size of your thumb was worth enough to purchase an entire country. As the story goes, Ali went to bed a poor man that night. He sold his farm and set out to seek a fortune of diamonds. After years of searching all over Palestine and Europe and not finding a single diamond, he ended up penniless. In a fit of despair, he threw himself into a raging tide and drowned. Soon afterward, the purchaser of Ali's farm was visited by the same priest that told Ali about the diamonds. The priest noticed a small diamond on the mantelpiece and asked, "Where did you find this?" To which the man replied, "There's a brook that runs through the farm, and it's full of them." So here, Ali went searching the world to find his diamond mine, and all along, right under his feet, was his own acres of diamonds. Most people are sitting on their own acres of diamonds. The surest way to lose your diamond mine are to get bored, become overambitious, or start thinking that the grass is greener on the other side. Find your core focus, stick to it, and devote your time and resources to excelling at it. When business owners get bored, there is always the potential for them to get distracted by the shiny stuff and inadvertently sabotage what they've built. Fading passion and losing sight of why you're in business are other pitfalls that could lead to the same fate. Defining your core focus will return you to your original levels of clarity and excitement. A great example of a company distracted by shiny stuff was Broder and Saxe Real Estate Services. Just prior to starting the EOS process, the real estate management company had dodged a bullet. This particular bullet came in the form of a business proposal from a man who wanted Broder and Saxe to buy an industrial building he owned so he could start an engine powder coating company. The deal was that he would lease the building from Broder and Saxe and would use the proceeds of the sale to build the line and the facilities. The man had customers already lined up. He just needed to build the infrastructure and open its doors. On paper, it was $1 million idea. Excited by the prospect, co-owners Rich Broder and Todd Saxe decided to go one step further and partner with the man in the powder coating business. After investing $1 million of their own money and 1.5 years of their time, Rich and Todd eventually closed the business. In the 3 months it had been open, it had lost a total of $300,000. Clearly, it was the worst business decision of their careers. There was, however, a silver lining. 6 months later, someone stepped in and bought the company for almost as much as they had put into it. Quite frankly, they got lucky. On the other hand, they still lost 1.5 years of time and focus on their core business and their core focus. And that loss is incalculable. Their mistake is now known around the office as a CCT, which stands for the short-lived company's name, Capital Coating Technologies. Now, whenever they see something shiny, they jokingly dub it a CCT and direct their energies toward their core. Broder and Saxe's core focus is owning and managing real estate, not powder coating. While a new idea may look like a no-brainer on paper, it's simply not worth doing if it's not a part of your core focus. When your core focus is clear, you're going to come to several important realizations. You realize that certain practices, people, and sometimes entire divisions and/or product lines don't fit into your core focus. As a direct result of this discovery, past EOS clients have gotten rid of entire departments and excelled as a result. For example, Image One, a $7 million laser printer service and supply company, was clear on its core focus. It eliminated its computer networking business unit and focused entirely on simplifying its clients' printing environments. The decision was a painful and emotional one, but the company did it. As a result, it's grown by an average of 30% every year of the past 4, resulting in a sale to a publicly traded company in its industry for very high multiples. Image One's president and co-owner Rob Dubay says, "The decision to close our company division after 6 months was a turning point in our company's history. Once our core focus was clear, there was no turning back." Incidentally, Rob and Joel have purchased the company back and continue to grow it at 30% per year. Image One was also recently selected as the Small Business of the Year by Crain's Detroit Business and also as a finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. Simply put, decide what business you are in and be in that business. As the old saying goes, he who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. Or, as Al Ries pointed out in his book Focus, imagine a medical practice saying to itself, "We are known as terrific brain surgeons, so let's get into the heart, liver, lung, and limb business." I'm always amused when a client looks at another industry and says, "Boy, I wish I were in that business. It's so much simpler than ours." I think to myself, oh, if only they knew. In other words, I've yet to see a simple business that is easy to run. They all take work. Success in one kind of industry doesn't necessarily dictate success in another. You can only succeed in the kind of business that is right for you and your team. As Jim Collins puts it in his best-selling book, Good to Great, you have to figure out what you're genetically encoded to do. That's a vital point. The combination of your talents and your passions combined with your leadership creates something unique that no other company has. And that something is your core focus. You must uncover what it is, and the following exercise is designed to help you do exactly that. Here is how to determine your core focus. First, you and your leadership team should define with absolute clarity 2 truths. Number 1, your reason for being, and number 2, your niche. Core focus is actually very simple. Don't overthink it. You simply lock your leadership team in a room for a minimum of 2 uninterrupted hours. Start by asking them to write the answers to 2 questions. Number 1, they need to write down the answer to, why does your organization exist? What is its purpose, cause, or passion? And question number 2 they need to write the answer to is, what is your organization's niche? Once everyone has finished, go around the table and have them share what they've written. Then open up the discussion for debate and talk as a group. Do this with both questions, one at a time, until you're on the same page and have each answer down to just a few words. Be warned, you may need several sessions to complete this task. Be patient and remember not to overthink or overanalyze. Like core values, your core focus already exists. It's just a matter of chiseling away the non-core items before you get it. When answering question 1, and your purpose, cause, or passion is clear, a rule of thumb is that you will not be able to tell what business you're in. You should be able to take this purpose, cause, or passion into any industry. This will also keep you from confusing it with your niche. When your purpose, cause, or passion is clear, it should meet all 8 points of the following checklist. Number 1, It's stated in 3 to 7 words. Number 2, it's written in simple language. Number 3, it's big and bold. Number 4, it has an aha effect when it's heard. Number 5, it comes from the heart. Number 6, it involves everyone. Number 7, it's not just about money. And number 8, it's bigger than a goal. Examples of purposes, cause, or passions in other organizations are Cunningham Limps, a general contractor. Theirs is customer delight. McKinley, a real estate property management and investment company, is to enrich the quality of life in their communities. Image One, as I talked about earlier, is to build a great company with great people and great results. And Schechter Wealth Strategies, a financial services company, is to create lifelong relationships and raving fans. When answering question 2, your niche should be simple. It will ultimately become a filtering mechanism for your team to make its decisions as you go forward. As Orville Redenbacher said, do one thing and do it better than anyone else. Some examples are Autumn Associates, an insurance company which is creating the right program with the right coverage for the right clients. As I already said, Orville Redenbacher, his was simply popcorn. Atlas Oil Companies is moving gallons. Again, Image One's is simplifying companies' printing environments, and McKinley's is solving complex real estate problems. With your niche and your organization's reason for being crystal clear, you now have a core focus. Once your core focus is clear, you'll need to stay true to it. If a new business opportunity doesn't fit, don't do it. If someone on the leadership team tries to throw something incongruent over the wall, you get to throw it back. Let it be your filtering mechanism for all future decisions. Here are some real-world core focus examples with both questions answered. Asphalt Specialist Inc., ASI. Their passion is winning, and their niche is quality asphalt paving. Xenocomp, a technology company. Its passion is creating efficient solutions, and their niche is worry-free technology that protects and grows their clients' businesses. Ronish Construction Group, a general contractor. Their purpose is to exceed people's expectations, and their niche is meeting the schedule in all facets of construction. And Image One's combined, when you pull it all together, it's a passion of building a great company with great people and great results, and a niche of simplifying companies' printing environments. With those real-life examples in mind, I want to share a story with you of 2 brothers. Alongside 2 other partners, brothers Tyler and Jonathan Smith founded a small technology business designing high-end websites with back-end web applications. Once they realized their current business no longer fit their personal core focus, they left the business to their partners and each went out to build successful businesses in line with their core focus. Jonathan went on to co-found Wave Dispersion Technologies, a company that provides coastline security for countries all over the world. His company made Inc. magazine's list of 500 fastest-growing private companies in 2007. And Tyler, with his new partner Brad, built the web retail company Niche Retail, taking it from startup to $15 million in revenue in just 4 years. Tyler and Brad were finalists for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and Niche Retail was named 300 on Inc. magazine's list of the 500 fastest-growing private companies in 2006. Illuminate your core focus, and you could generate those same results as well. One important point: clarifying your core focus assumes that you have a financial model that works. With that being the case, it's just a matter of focusing on and executing your vision so that the profit will follow. You may know that in golf, the face of a golf club has a sweet spot. While its actual size varies depending on the club, let's assume it's about 50% of the face. To the degree you hit the ball on the sweet spot, the ball goes further, it goes straighter, contact feels better, and you'll score better. The same applies to your business. Just like a golf club, your business has a sweet spot. And now that you have clarified your core focus, you know what that sweet spot is. And assuming you stay in your sweet spot, which might be around 50% of your market, your business will go further and score better in terms of profitability. Once your core focus is clear, your people, your process, your systems can be put in place to drive it with consistency. And until you've exhausted every opportunity in your core focus, don't allow yourself to get distracted by shiny stuff.
Track 6. 10-Year Target.
Now that your core values and core focus are clear, the third question and the third section is, what is your 10-year target? Where are you taking this organization? A 10-year target is simply a goal. Needs to be SMART, S-M-A-R-T, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. But it's more than a goal. It gives everyone in the organization a clear picture and direction of where the organization is heading. And be careful what you wish for. With this process, you'll get it. When your 10-year target is clear and you and the entire leadership team are 100% on the same page, you will automatically start doing things different this month, this week, even tomorrow, that will start taking you there. The reason we call it a 10-year target is because 90% of our clients pick 10 years. In Jim Collins' book, Built to Last, which is a must-read for any leadership team, Jim Collins discovered in his research that companies that have endured decades, one of the common denominators was that they all had a 10 to 30-year larger-than-life goal. Jim Collins calls it a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. Examples of 10-year targets. One is Starbucks. Currently, Starbucks' goal is to become the number one brand in the world, to be bigger and more respected than Coca-Cola. Another example is Walmart. Back in 1990, Walmart set a 10-year goal to become a $125 billion company by the year 2000, which they achieved. My previous business, ours was to train 1 million students. Currently, Virtual CEO, our 10-year target is to accelerate 10,000 companies. Another one of my clients, Autumn Associates, a referral from every client and every client from a referral. And another example is Nike. Back in the 60s, theirs was to crush Adidas. So the exercise. You get together with your leadership team. I highly recommend reading Built to Last prior to the session, and you discuss and you debate where do you really want to take this organization and decide what is your 10-year target. Now, one rule of thumb is it doesn't have to be 10 years. As I mentioned earlier, 10 to 30 years is the rule of thumb. Just make sure that once it's clear, make sure that everyone is 100% on the same page and that everyone wants it and is motivated by it. Once it's clear, great things will start to happen.
Track 7. Marketing Strategy.
So the fourth section and the fourth question is, what is your marketing strategy? When this section is complete and you are all 100% on the same page, your sales and marketing efforts will be simpler and laser focused. We're a big believer in the 20-80 rule, which says do the 20% that gets you 80% of the results. And that's what we're talking about here. When your marketing strategy is clear as a leadership team, the next step is that you must be absolutely consistent with this marketing strategy and very clear in communicating it to everyone in the organization. And you remember the rule of thumb in good parenting, we need to repeat ourselves often. So they're going to need to hear about it 7 times before they hear about it for the first time. Marketing strategy is made up of 4 sections. The first section is 3 uniques. Saying it another way, the most common marketing term for 3 uniques are differentiators that make you different, that describe your niche, that make you stand out. And so in discovering what these are, the rule of thumb is if you line yourself up against 100 of your competitors, there might be 1 of those uniques that you all have. There might even be 2 that some of you have. But your 3 uniques no one else has, and it's what truly makes you unique as an organization. It's what you're competing on, and again, what makes you different than all of your competitors. Again, what we're trying to create here is focus. The common mistake that most organizations make is there's just too many things that they're competing on. It's confusing, and you don't know what truly makes them unique. You don't know who they truly are. And so that's why it's vital to really boil it down to 3. Sometimes 2, sometimes 4, but 3 seems to be the magic number. I'd like to give you 2 examples. Southwest Airlines is a great example. Their 3 uniques are lots of fares, lots of flights, and lots of fun. They call them the 3 LFs. That's what drives everything in that organization's model. One more example for you is Virtual CEO, our organization. Our 3 uniques are number 1, simple, practical tools, the basics of what makes businesses great. Our second unique is leadership teams. We will only work with the leadership team of the organization. And then lastly, accountability. There's a high level of accountability in this process. And we come back at intervals and help you really implement. And that's what truly makes us unique. So those are 3 uniques. The next section in marketing strategy is your guarantee. And so what we're talking about here is, what is your guarantee to your customer that's measurable? Just like what Federal Express did with overnight delivery, their guarantee is it will absolutely, positively be there overnight. And so what is your guarantee to your customer? And hopefully it's revolutionary, but what is the measurable guarantee that your customer can count on from you? Another great example is what Blockbuster did with new releases. The guarantee is that the new release will be there. Another great guarantee was, again, in our prior business, we were able to produce 1 unit per person per week, which was 250% more than the industry average. And then I have a great client in the laser printer repair business, and their guarantee is 4 hours or it's free. If they're not there in 4 hours, their service is free. And so with that, again, with your leadership team, come up with what is your guarantee to your customer. The third section is proven process. It is a very powerful concept. In a nutshell, what it is it's taking the unique way that you do business with your customer. Each step, from the first inception to years later and the ongoing follow-up, it's typically 5 to 8 steps, and putting it to a visual and then giving it a name, the blank process. The next step is to put it on 1 page, full color, and illustrate to your customer how you work. This will do 2 very powerful things for you. It will increase the customer's confidence in you. They'll know they're in good hands. Secondly, it will build incredible value in their minds because most of the time they've never seen it illustrated this way before. And then the fourth and final section inside of marketing strategy is your target market, or as I like to call it, the list. You've probably heard this term before. Your target market is just simply defining who is your ideal customer. Who are they? Where are they? What do they look like? Demographic, geographic, psychographic. Where are they? Who are they? And get after them. By doing this, what you're basically creating is a filter. And you literally take this filter, you run this filter across the entire world, and out of that filter, is this wonderful list of the perfect prospect for your organization. And assuming that's clear, you then pull the entire marketing strategy section together. So now you know who you're going after, you're sharing with them why you're unique, promising them your guarantee, and showing them your proven process for the way that you do business. I promise you this will create incredible focus and clarity around your sales and marketing efforts and increase your sales.
Track 8, 3-year picture.
The fifth section and the fifth question is, what is your 3-year picture? Now, we're not big believers in heavy 3 to 5 year planning and a lot of detail and a lot of time. And the main reason is you'll find a lot changes in 3 to 5 years in an organization. And so what we do believe in, however, is creating a 3-year picture, a picture that you can, as a leadership team, touch, feel, see, believe, and want. And once again, be 100% on the same page with. So then when that picture's clear, we can do some great 1-year planning from that 3-year picture. So the way it works, assuming you have the VTO in front of you, we first pick the time frame because it's not always 3 years. The reason it says 3 years is we find that 90% of the time organizations pick 3 years. So it's typically 3 to 7 years. You decide on the time frame. From there, you're going to determine the measurables. So by that date, what are your revenues going to be? What is your profit going to be? And what are some specific measurables? And in every organization, you have these 1, 2, or 3 very specific measurables that are a great telltale sign of the size of the organization. And really get specific here. Once you've determined that, then what you do is have everyone on the leadership team take a few quiet minutes and just kind of bullet point out, what does the organization look like in that time frame? When you're all done and you combine all the results, it's typically about 10 to 20 bullet points that paint this wonderful picture of what the organization looks like in 3 years. What I also suggest is that each person on the leadership team describe their role in the organization in that time frame. Now, here's the important part. You cannot move on. You cannot move out of this section until everyone on the leadership team sees it clearly and wants it. And you don't move forward and you can't move forward until you've reached that consensus. The other thing I'd like to caution you of is this process typically takes 1 to 2 hours. So although I've made it sound like it takes maybe 5 minutes, it's a 1 to 2 hour process. There's some great dialogue and debate, and you kind of go back and forth. And again, let those 10 to 20 bullet points rise to the surface. And then once that's clear, once everyone can see it and everyone wants it, you then pull it down to the ground and create a very clear 1-year plan.
Track 9, 1-year plan.
So now what we've done is we've answered the first 5 questions that are contained in the vision side of the Vision Traction Organizer, the VTO. And so now where we're going is to the traction side. And again, we're bringing it down to the ground. And we're going to create a very clear 1-year plan, and we're going to get very specific here. And so step 1 is to decide on the future date, and again, typically 1 year out. I highly recommend you keep it on a calendar year, but you ultimately decide. From there, you decide on your measurables. What is the revenue goal for the organization next year? What is the profit? Looking back at the 3-year picture, what now are the measurables? What are those 1, 2, or 3 numbers in terms of goals for the next year? From there, with the 3-year picture in mind, you're going to discuss and debate and decide on what are the most important 3 to 7 goals for this organization. Because again, we're going to talk about rocks in just a bit, but in the world of rocks, less is always more. In the world of goals, less is always more. So what we need to decide is what are the most important 3 to 7 goals for this organization this year. These goals need to be SMART goals Again, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. From there, when that plan is clear, and again, I made it sound simple, that's typically 1 or 2 hours of dialogue and debate, coming up with what are the goals. From there, we determine, is there a focus or is there a theme for the year? What is the overriding theme, the key thrust for this year as an organization? Sometimes you'll have one, sometimes you won't. From there, we need to make sure that the roles and responsibilities are clear. That's that accountability chart. So is the accountability chart complete and clear and communicated to all? Does the person who's accountable for that major function of the organization agree and believe that they can hit that number? The next thing is make sure that you have a cash flow analysis and you've put a budget to this plan so that everyone is clear on the financial aspects of this plan and that everyone is getting what they want out of the organization next year. And then lastly, make sure that your scorecard is clear and complete in measuring that this one-year plan is on track. From there, we take that one-year plan down to the ground and determine what are our rocks.
Track 10, Quarterly Rocks.
The 7th section and the 7th question in the VTO is, what are your quarterly rocks? And so now with a clear one-year plan, we need to, once again, throw that stick out there 90 days into the future and determine what are the most important 3 to 7 things, rocks, this organization must get done for us to be on track for that one-year plan. So step 1, you're going to decide the future date. I recommend keeping it on a calendar year, so tie it to the end or beginning of each quarter. From there, you're going to decide what are the revenue numbers, what is the profit, and what are the measurables on the quarterly basis. And then you're going to pull from the one-year plan, what are the major issues, what are the rocks that this organization needs to get done, 3 to 7, over the next quarter. From there, you're going to assign ownership. Remember, someone on the leadership team has to be accountable, and only one person can be accountable and own the rock. And then the final thing to do is determine, do you have a quarterly theme this quarter? Is there a theme? Is there a focus that we really want to shed light on for this quarter? Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. And then again, we put our heads down and we go to work for the next 90 days and execute on this plan.
Track 11, Issues List.
The 8th and final section in question in the VTO, pulling it all together, is the issues list. What are the issues, obstacles, barriers that prevent you from achieving this vision? Success is in direct proportion to your ability to solve your issues. The reality, and the sooner you accept this reality, the better off you're going to be, is that you have issues. You will always have issues, and to the degree that you can, as a leadership team, clearly identify, discuss, and solve your issues, you will succeed. So it's all in making sure we identify them, and here's our opportunity to do so. Now, if this were an annual, what we typically do at the annual is something called a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And from that, we boil that down to a clear issues list. Rule of thumb, when you do this, you're going to come up with somewhere between 5 and 10 big issues, and that's what you're going to capture in this section of the VTO. And frankly, if you did nothing with those issues, just merely planting it in your subconscious, you're going to solve them. However, what we recommend is you take these issues, you carry them forward into your Level 10 weeklies, and follow that issue-solving track. Remember, identify, discuss, and solve.
Track 12, Action Steps.
Now, we challenge your leadership team to be relentless about forcing clarity and getting 100% on the same page with answering these 8 questions. Now, a little disclaimer here. And please understand that if you're only at 80%, you're still better than most. And we found that most organizations are somewhere around 30%, just to put it in perspective. But again, the challenge is to be relentless about pushing for the 100%. And a caution, remember what we've talked about. About every 90 days, you start to get off track. So you're going to come out of this meeting feeling great, on the same page, rowing in the same direction. 90 days later, as I mentioned, you're going to start getting off track again, and you need to come back together to get back on track. The next thing I'd like to share with you is to please let this vision be your guide. It's your greater good. Quite frankly, it's bigger than all of you. As you solve problems, as you tackle your issues, let this vision be your guide. And then lastly, assuming you and the leadership team have done all of this wonderful work, I ask that the next step then is you take this vision to the organization and communicate it to all.
Track 13. Acknowledgements.
I'll close this CD by recognizing a few people. There are many sources, clients, and experiences I've pulled from to create this process. However, there are 6 very specific people that were life-changing for me, and I'd like to take a minute to recognize those people. The first is Floyd Wickman, my father, who taught me everything that I know and learned about communicating to people, be it communicating to 1 or 1,000. He is a nationally renowned speaker, a successful entrepreneur, and one of the world's greatest sales trainers. His organization is called Star Makers. You can reach him at starmakerteam.com or simply call 800-910-5351. The second person is a gentleman by the name of Sam Cupp, who was my business mentor, who taught me most of what I've learned about becoming successful in business. His organization is called Winning Futures, which is a program that he has brought into the high schools that help high school kids learn how to set a vision, create a plan, set goals, and commit and execute on those goals. His organization, if you'd like to find out more about it, you can find out at winningfutures.com. The third gentleman is Dan Sullivan, whose program, The Strategic Coach, changed my life. In his program, which I highly recommend, you will discover your unique ability and create a unique process for the way you do business. Unique ability and unique process are trademarks of the Strategic Coach program. You can find out more about Dan and his program at strategiccoach.com or simply call 800-387-3206. The fourth gentleman is Jim Collins. Jim Collins has written 2 best-selling books. One is called Built to Last, the other is Good to Great. The power of Jim Collins' books is that there is no theory. He does years of research and discovers why great organizations endure and then shares those findings. There are 2 tools you'll hear me talk about from time to time throughout these recordings. The first is Hedgehog Concept, which is a copyright from Good to Great. And the second is BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious Goal, which is a copyright from Built to Last. You can reach Jim Collins at jimcollins.com or call 303-256-5476. The fifth gentleman I'd like to recognize is Pat Lencioni. Pat Lencioni's written 3 books, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, The 5 Temptations of a CEO, and The Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive. His organization is called the Table Group. Pat Lencioni is the master of building healthy organizations. Some of the most simplistic, practical tools I've ever learned about helping organizations become healthy, and his books are so well written and easy to read. One of Pat's tools you'll hear me talk about is the 5 Dysfunctions Pyramid, which is a copyright from his book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. You can reach Pat at tablegroup.com or call 510-596-9292. And then finally, the 6th gentleman I'd like to recognize is Vern Harnish, the growth guru. Vern's organization is called Gazelles, and he's written a book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. He helps organizations implement the tools they grow. You can reach Vern at gazelles.com or call 703-858-2401. I thank you for listening to this CD. I urge you to implement these tools, and I ask that you stay focused.